Good morning, Ruddle Maniacs. It is your host of I almost caught myself there. I almost said the old podcast name. This podcast is Ruddle Me This. That's how much I have muscle memoried myself into saying Ramblin' with Ruddle, which is the old name of the podcast. So welcome to Ruddle Me This. I am Taylor Ruddle. I hope your Monday morning is going well. I hope you had a great weekend, and I hope you've got a great week ahead of you. In this interview, we get to hear part 2 of my conversation with Dan Bain about his show Perfuct Storm, which is an improvised comedy show done at Little Andromeda. I give a little bit of a spiel on what the show is at the start of the interview, so keep listening if you want to find out what exactly that means. If this is the first interview that you're listening to, you can probably listen to it as a standalone, but if you wanted to get some more background on Dan Bain, about maybe learn why some of the things he does in this design process of his, why he does them, you can listen to the previous episode, which is where we talk about the Radiohead album Hail to the Thief. But again, not mandatory listening. This will serve just fine as a standalone interview, and I hope you enjoy it. Once again, Dan Bain is a writer, director, performer, and maker of fun things based in Christchurch, New Zealand. Good friend of mine. He has done some photo shoots for me before, and we've done heaps of gigs together. I really enjoy chatting to Dan, and I hope you enjoy listening to this conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. Ladies, gentlemen, and everybody in between, this is Dan Bain, part 2. Alright, welcome back, Ruddle Maniacs, to part 2 of my interview with Dan Bain. Dan, thank you for joining me again.
Pleasure to be here once again.
Yeah, with the magic of editing, it is now a week later.
I know.
So,
and what a week it's been.
I hope it's been a good week for you.
Yeah, me too.
So we are talking about, in this episode, your opus. Would you say it's your opus?
It's certainly my current main project, I guess. Yeah.
So that project is Perfuct Storm. And do you have an elevator pitch for it, or shall I attempt to clumsily explain what it is?
Oh, if you could clumsily explain it, I can't even explain it at the show.
So to my understanding, Perfuct Storm is an eldritch, time-traveling, alternate universe, multiverse improv experience in which 3 improvisers with a combined 60 years of experience, have I got that number right?
That feels about right.
3
Give or take.
3 performers with a combined 60 years of improvisation experience ask a single question to the audience at the start of the show and then just build from there. Now, unfortunately, I've never been able to get out and see one because Thursday nights are basically permanently blocked off for me. But I've read all I'm a big fan of the advertising, and I tend to just keep the show's not for me, but I love the posters.
I love the promo.
I love what you're doing.
Oh, it's so good.
So it's basically a long form improv performance with the same 3 cast members, although you've been rotating them out quite a bit recently. Is that just due to schedules?
That's just due to schedules. I mean, Kathleen hasn't been available for the show literally all year. With her work with her theatre work, she's just either been too busy at court. She's in Palmerston North at the moment, working for Centrepoint.
Well, that's a good problem to have.
It's a good problem for her to have.
That's true, yeah. Maybe not so good for you to have literally 1/3 of the show never available.
Yeah, I'm the one who has to replace them all the time. So
at least it's not a weekly open mic. Rebooking those every week was the least favourite part of my week, trying to find a fresh lineup for an open mic. So what was the kind of seed that started? Because you've been improvising for a long time, so I imagine this was a show you've been wanting to do for a long time?
Yes and no. This show was basically built off the fact that I worked for the Court Jesters for 20 years as an improviser. 6 of those years I ran the company, and then in a fairly unfortunate unpleasant turn of events, then I didn't do either of those.
Right, yeah.
And
In a twist.
just in a twist that apparently everyone saw coming except me.
Oh, God. That's horrible.
Yeah, and I'll just leave that at that. Use your imagination.
Yeah, totally. We don't have to get into anything.
But yeah, and then I kind of was like, right, well, who cares? Improv is stupid anyway. I'll just do stand up. It'll just be me. I'll go and do that. I used to do stand up a lot. When I first kind of started my career, I was like a stand up and a variety act, and then I became a theatre improv person for a considerable amount of time. And then so I was like, okay, that's fine, whatever. I don't even care.
Yeah.
I don't even care. I've got other things I can do. I'll go and do that. But Little Andromeda wanted to install a regular improv show, so the initial kind of concept was between kind of myself, Kathleen, and Michael Bell. Michael really wanted to put a show in. He'd been talking to Kathleen about it, and Kathleen was like, "Okay, well, we're gonna get Dan to do it." And they phoned me up and were kind of like, "Do you want to do this?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah." And then and then it kind of built off that, and we were, like one of the big things. If I'll digress for a second, I got an email. I got an email a couple of weeks ago from improv company in Wellington, saying we've got this fancy pantsy improviser that we've brought into the city, into the country from overseas, and we're wondering if you guys would be interested in. They're looking for other opportunities around the country.
Awesome.
Would you guys be interested in having them come down and you could do a workshop with them or whatever? And I was delighted to be able to send back an email saying, hey, that sounds great, but the kaupapa of Perfuct Storm is no meetings, no rehearsals, no workshops ever. So that's kind of how we kind of began. It was being like, we're only going to have people perform in it who can turn up on the night and just do it, because we've been doing this for too long to be like, let's do a workshop every 2 weeks. Let's do it. It's like not really. It's like we can do this, and so that I guess that was kind of the genesis of it, was something that, and then we were like, okay, what if it's just we need another person. Who's that going to be? Then we invited Emma to kind of be that third person, and that's kind of been the core kind of cast of it, and then it's expanded out gently a little bit since then with the need for replacing people. So we have Dan Allen, who's an improviser who's based in Dunedin currently, play a few times. Henry Nellis from the Court Jesters.
I've seen Henry. He's very funny.
It's very funny, man.
Very confident.
Very confident.
Super. Not flamboyant's not the right word, but super. He struts. You know what I mean? Like I'd be terrified to move around the way he does. It's very distinctive.
He's pretty fearless.
Yes, that's a bit. I'd say that, but very, very funny. So you had your kind of core trio there, and the name, you did actually tell me this in private last year sometime. The name came from Kathleen. She said she used to use the word Perfuct.
Yeah, Kathleen wanted to call the show Perfuct, and she wanted it to just be Perfuct. She thought that was a good name for a show, and she'd been and I agreed, but I was like, I don't know what Perfuct looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to visually represent that, or what kind of I don't know what the identity of that is. And so I kind of then started throwing a bunch of kind of words, basically turns of phrase that use the word perfect.
Yes.
But recontextualized. So I think perfect crime.
Oh, that's nice.
You know, all those kind of things. Yeah, and eventually I was like, it's got to be Perfuct Storm, because then I can, like, it can all have thunder and lightning imagery, and that feels it's erotic and evocative.
Yes, that's sorry. Erotic. Jeez.
It's the combination of the two.
Yeah, I might have just made something up there.
And so that was kind of the and she didn't like that, to be honest. But I pushed back aggressively.
Had she pitched any imagery ideas for what Perfuct could be? Like just
no.
The classic graphic designer conundrum there. The client doesn't know what they want, but they know it's not what you've just shown them.
Yes. Yeah. No. I do most of the. What am I saying? Most. I do all of the design work for the show, and the when I first started off, occasionally I'd get some feedback, which was always, "Oh no," and now they just kind of leave me to it.
They've learnt that you're just going to do what you're going to do.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. The first promo shoot, I think the second promo shoot that we did, which was
it the Rain Machine one?
No, that was the third one. The second one was we called Magicians Sans Magic.
Oh,
so it was we were all kind of Vegas magician kind of like doing like ooh, and it was all real lit kind of blue and red and kind of like, and we were all doing like moody faces. That was the original one. I wanted to do that for that one was I called Fighting Invisible Ninjas.
Okay.
Which was like the three of us looking like getting like a special effects makeup artist in to kind of bloody up our faces and kind of have and that we were all kind of in kind of these combat kind of stances,
right.
but with no kind of enemies, and they vetoed that.
That's quite a common theme I noticed, because I suppose we'll tie into what I do a little bit with this one-time shows. I've done an episode on it. The listeners might remember it, but I did a lot of looking into what designers use for improv shows, and there was one that shows up a lot, which is real photos of the people, but they've got like a cartoon sword in their hand, or arrows flying at them, or a dragon in the background, or something like that. And
the drawn aesthetic over the top of the
thing. Absolutely. I did actually try to do some of that, but I'm not a good enough artist to. It just looked, because I think those there's a way to make things look ironically bad, but mine just looked post-ironically bad.
Yes.
And you definitely didn't go for that route. You went for a very professional look for a lot of the branding for it. You even going as far as to making a rain machine for the third shoot, as you said.
Yeah, I guess the issue is that how do you take a photo of improvisation?
Yeah,
right. How do you actually visually convey the idea of what that improv show kind of is? And a lot of people fall down the trap of just like, I guess we'll just take a photo of the cast looking wacky. You know, like all kind of doing their wiggles hands and going like, oh, and
Jeff told me about a Tumblr account called Scar Band or Improv Troupe, where it's just a bunch of photos like that, and you have to guess whether it's a Scar Band or an improv troupe.
Exactly.
So I was going to ask one other thing. So on the poster, I guess, it's a bit late into the podcast now, but for the visual listeners, they'll be seeing the poster on the screen now, but for the audio-only listeners, would you like me to do a description of it like I did for the show, or would you like to take the reins on that one?
Yeah.
So,
you tell me what this is.
So, the poster, and this is about, was this your fourth shoot?
Yeah, I think so.
So what we're looking at is...
fourth one.
It's a square formatted image, and in the background you see an icy forest that reminds me a lot of the White Walker's forest in Game of Thrones. And at the top, and is that Bebas new font?
It's Din condensed.
Gotcha. So it just says Perfuct Storm. This one thing that I've always been a little bit surprised at is that you don't have an official logo for the show. You just use the name in a font. And then underneath it says comedy, 2 colons, improvisation, 2 colons, and then not here to play games. And I was going to ask you, what was the origin of not here to play games?
Not here to play games is kind of a jab at Scared Scriptless.
Oh, okay.
To be honest, because I mean it's a double meaning, right? First of all, we're not here to. I should have asked you if this was a swearing podcast.
Yeah, go ahead, swear away, fella.
Right, okay. We're not here to fuck around. Okay, very good. But yeah, we're not there. You know, we're not there to waste people's time, and we're not there to kind of do experimental kind of like, oh, what if it was drama?
Gotcha.
Like, fuck that. We're not there to do that. We're there to generate comedy. It's a comedy show. You'll see that's actually in the order of things that we've put is the priorities.
Right,
the priority is not improvisation. The priority is comedy.
Gotcha.
So yeah, we go comedy, improvisation, and not here to play games. And that's, I mean, it's just a. We're not here to mess around, but 2, we're not here to play. We're not playing improv games. We're not gonna get someone up and you be the arms to me while I do this, or you know, like, and then we're gonna play the scene again, but this time we're all monkeys, or that kind of, you know, when it's, and I mean, you know,
I've heard.
No shame on that, because I mean I spent 20 years playing short form improv games and made my living out of it for ages, but there's a show that does that. It does it very well, I assume. I don't know, I haven't been there for 6 years. Who knows, but yeah, well, I wasn't interested in it, and neither were the others.
Gotcha.
So we made a different thing.
Yeah, one of my I don't know which one of my sort of old comedy mentors said this. Might have been Reg Blackwood. They told me that, if I'm falsely attributing this to Reg, I apologise, but I think it was Reg who told me. He said that good comedy is rebelling against something. So I think in that case, it's almost like saying, you know, this thing here that exists is the exact opposite of what I want to be doing, so I'm going to go and make my own version of this, but do it how I want it. And I think any artist out there, comedian, painter, whatever, musician, has pretty much felt that at one point. Like, I think stand-up is an interesting one for this, because I think a lot of stand-ups think that they were the only ones who've got it right and everyone else is just messing about. So
yes,
I think that's a very relatable sentiment to probably who's listening.
Yeah.
So I'll get back to my description of the poster, because I've now digressed quite a lot. So it's a blue forest, and there are 3 characters in the middle of the forest. Well, there's 4, one of which is deceased, maybe, which is, I believe that's Michael Bell, isn't it? So there is a shirtless person in jeans that is turned blue, the same blue as the rest of the forest, and slightly covered in snow, I assume dead on the ground. And then there are 3 characters in the middle wearing, I don't know what this era is it 1940s, 50s?
It's 40s,
1940s era clothing. Dan is in the middle holding a lamp, and he is wearing a sort of a noir trench coat. And then Kathleen is off to his left wearing a fur coat, like a sort of, not necessarily a femme fatale, but maybe a rich widower kind of suspicious widower fur coat. And I can't quite tell what Emma's wearing, because her hand is covering. Is she wearing a similar jacket?
She's got a fairly similar kind of fur.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like a winter fur, and she's also got a little beret.
And they are looking.
as well.
They're looking off to the right and looking slightly concerned or confused. And then the rest of the image is what Jeff called the mandatory. So it's Garage Project logo, Perfect Show logo, Little Andromeda logo, www.perfuct.co.nz, and the Noose Octopus Theatre logo. So I forget why I described it. I think we're just going to talk about the actual design of the image. What was the impetus of this? Because you did quite a big photo shoot with that, and you created more graphics in this kind of costuming and style, didn't you?
Yeah, we did a bunch of... So, Andromeda releases its program seasonally, so I decided to do a seasonal program. So I did Storms from a bunch of seasons. So the one really immediately... Cool. The one immediately prior to this one was like a kind of... was a picnic, sitting at a picnic table, and there's clearly like heavy gust wind. All the food is kind of blowing off the table, and we're all kind of being gusted as well. And Michael has been blown off into the air, holding onto his shirt, and so this one was first of all. It was for the winter season, so we gave it this winter aesthetic. But also, I followed a narrative line. So it's like what happened after the last poster? Like Michael blew away off into the sky. What happened next? And so this is us going and searching for him after he's been blown away, and turns out which is why he's got no shirt on, right? Is in the snow. He's landed away in this forest and kind of is frozen into the under the snow.
I didn't...
So yeah. So the idea is we're off kind of looking for him, and he's kind of right under our feet was the I guess the narrative underneath the
image. Did not realise there was a continuing narrative. So does that mean there was...
it's so ridiculous.
Was there one before the wind series of images? Was there a story connected to that too?
No, that was the first one that had Michael in it. The very first one, when I didn't really have a grip on what the show is, but also how to kind of make what I wanted. Yeah. The very first one was kind of just 3 headshots over a storm background.
That's right.
Over some lightning strikes and that sort of thing. And then the next one was I got a bit better, and it's kind of the magician's kind of one.
Yeah.
And then I got much more ambitious and did this massive kind of compositing project for the picnic storm image. And then this one, which I think is probably the best one I've ever done, which is why I submitted, or the best one for this show anyway, is actually just it's just one photo. There's very little compositing. The background, so they're composited onto.
I was
going to
ask, how did you create the background?
But and a little bit of the foreground is composited, but like I bought a lot of fake snow, so we mixed up about 20 litres of fake snow and poured that over Michael, just on a big white infinity screen. So we were on a little rostra just up above him. We poured all this snow all over him. We had a makeup artist come in and kind of icicle his face, and while they were also doing the kind of 40s hair and makeup for Kathleen and Emma, but it's actually for a lot of them I find sometimes I have to composite just the very nature of a photo of three people.
Yes, you do need to.
Sometimes to get all three of them looking good but that's the actual photo.
Wow, you've done really well with it then.
Yeah, that one turned out really well.
Has there been an image since that continues this story? I'm not quite sure where you're up to with the seasons of the show.
Yeah, there is, but I actually don't like it very much, so I don't use it.
Would you like to talk about maybe like a post-mortem, like what?
Yeah, sure. I'll talk about it. So the last photo shoot that I did was the.
Has it been released online?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, there's physical copies of it at Andromeda,
Gotcha.
but I don't think I've put it out.
Gotcha.
So it's. I did it at the same time that I did the New Saints of Comedy series, which I was so happy with, which was the individual shots of us kind of looking like tarot cards.
Oh, were you in that sort of recess in the wall kind of artwork? Yep, I know that one.
Yeah, and it's real. It's it's all flat on, and we're holding kind of pseudo-religious iconography and that sort of thing, and I was so stoked with how that turned out. Awesome. And then I had a group shot that was in the same kind of on the same aesthetic, and it just wasn't as good.
Right.
And maybe if I spent another like 10 hours kind of photoshopping it, I might have got it to somewhere where I was like, yay, I like it now.
So the graphic you'd put together was you did another shot where all three of you were standing in the frame and you were in those costumes, and it was going to be a continuation of the
so we were all the three of us were kind of seated on these on kind of a like a dais, like a kind of 3-part throne kind of thing, and we were all still holding like our religious or our magic items, and behind us Michael was being reanimated and brought back to life.
The story continues.
Yeah, and so he was kind of floating up, and he had this very kind of like, that was probably the most successful part of it, was he was kind of up there in this real kind of Renaissance painting, with like a little kind of Jesus loincloth that kind of expanded out either way into these big ribbons, and on those ribbons with like the show dates were on cool. those, and it was quite cool. But the kind of hero part of the image, the three of us kind of seated underneath it, just wasn't quite as successful. Especially, and I guess I was just disappointed because comparing back to the individual images from the the individual headshots off the back of those, totally. All of which I was just like, oh, this is the best photo I've ever taken. Oh God, I just beat myself again. This is so
that's
good.
The capitalistic kind of mindset we're all in, isn't it? That you have to be continuously striving upwards. But I mean, that's something that a lot of creators face, I think. Like, I know Jeffries considers his special Alcoholocaust his greatest thing he's ever done, and that was like his second special. So that's a tricky one to try and constantly be topping yourself, isn't it?
Yeah.
So then I guess what do you feel like you're presumably going to do another shoot for the next season? What's your kind of plans for? Are you going to continue the story? Are you going to go back to the drawing board? What's your thought process on what's next?
I have a good idea for I have a good idea for individual shots and kind of a wider kind of photo shoot, but in terms of the hero image, I might just start just using one of us for them, maybe, rather than the three of us, because it's hard to get all three of us looking great. And
in
like
one image, it's tricky, isn't it?
In one image, but I mean, I say that now, but who knows what kind of comes up. But at the moment, and that's probably off the back of what happened on the last one. But I've got another good idea, I think, for a shoot that is about doing fun portraiture. Fun individual portraiture. So much like the individual portraiture for the Saints of Comedy one, where the individual ones were so kind of strong. But I'm not sure if it carries over into a group shot or how to make that work as a group shot so I don't know, we'll see. Maybe there's a way to do it.
I was going to ask as well, do you feel like these seasons you've been, because you said that you felt like that the snow one was your best work in that series, do you feel like when you look at a new project you think about it in terms of new skills that you are going to need to acquire to make this look happen? Because you still do quite a lot of practical effects in terms of actual costumes and lighting and stuff like that. Has each one been a new technique or something that you had to master?
I think I try to do something new with all of them, and this one, which also was what the individual portraits that came out with this snow series were. There's this big run of ones through like a rainy window.
Yes, I do remember those ones.
Yeah, and so some of them were through the window and others were kind of inside the window looking out, and there's a reflection of the subject in the thing. Blah, blah, blah.
Very much got Murder on the Orient Express kind of vibes from those ones. It felt, I don't know whether it was intended or not, but I imagined that they were on a train.
Right, yeah, cool. For me, it felt a little bit kind of retro futuristic.
I can
with
see
the
that.
40s kind of aesthetic, but there's there's quite a bit of neon reflected in the windows that I put in. There's particularly Kathleen's look, how she's been done up. She looks a lot like Rachel from Blade Runner. And so that really kind of pull. So with a lot of her ones, particularly the color, the kind of final color grade I gave to them was quite kind of futuristic-y, slightly matrixy green.
I can definitely see that
kind of tinge to kind of pull her a little bit that way. But I with each of them I try and kind of push myself a little bit further in what I can do. I think the biggest step forward was the jump between the picnic one and this one.
I think I'd agree with you there,
because the picnic one turned out quite well, but
it was a cool one. I remember being really impressed with it.
Yeah, but I think it's like I was really working at the edge of what I actually had the technical skill to do.
Yeah,
for that. I was right at the the cusp of it, and then and so it turned out quite well. I'm proud of it, but it was really hard. Whereas the next one, it turned out really well and was actually really easy.
Yeah, that's what you want. Sustainability.
Because I bought 2 new pieces of gear, which kind of made all the difference.
Gotcha.
And so so much of it was able to happen in camera.
Yeah.
And the same with the most recent kind of the tarot card ones. 90% of those images are done in camera.
Yeah.
And when I kind of get into the edit, it's actually, it's a 40-minute kind of clean up and highlight and maybe composite in each. Like I put a snake in Kathleen's amphora in one of them because it cool.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
you know,
The more work you can do in camera, the less work for you later on, isn't it?
Yeah, and that was kind of the big step up for me. It was. I mean, just buying a couple of extra studio flashes actually that was the core of it.
So one last thing I thought we could cover, and that's something that initially kind of drew me to all of your work, was your Instagram timeline, your Instagram grid. I'm not quite sure what the correct word for it is. So if you're okay with it, I might take a video of myself scrolling down the feed and put that on camera now. So if you're an audio listener and you want to see what I'm talking about, check out Perfuct Show on Instagram, or just watch the YouTube version and you can see that there. So to sum it up quickly, you are going for an approach where, rather than necessarily looking at the images individually, which you still can do, it's more like you scroll through the entire feed, and because of the 3x3, the way Instagram shows it to you 3x3, you get a picture, and each image is like a small slice of. I'm describing this really poorly. Can you take in and save me here?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a continuous feed, right? So the whole thing is designed to be one enormous image, as well as how I think it's about 900 individual images make it up at the moment.
909 according to what I'm looking at now.
There we go. Oh, as long as it's a multiple of 3, I know it's still working. And as you say, the idea is that you can. Hopefully each image kind of works by itself. Some of them don't, particularly when I was first starting out. I didn't quite know what I was doing, but the idea is that there's 2 layers to it, so you can look at it as individual images, or you can, if you visit and it was very much build a profile, a portfolio kind of piece as well.
Yeah, because
for me,
it tends to come back to what we were talking about in the Radiohead interview with the idea of multimedia. It's still part of the same project. So what I've been quite enjoying is you just have a scroll down and the overall color of the image changes, and you kind of see it go through the different eras of what your branding looked like at the time. Like I'm kind of been just scrolling down as I've been talking to see, and I've gotten back to the magician stage, where the colours are mainly red, sort of blue and purple, and then bits of lightning and stuff in the background, and you sort of alternate between going in and out of having like a parchment sort of background and just using the pictures, and it's a really fun scroll. So I recommend all the listeners, if just open it up on your Instagram app on your phone and just have a little scroll through with your thumb. I've never seen it done before. It's quite ingenious.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I mean, I wish I could say it was my original idea. I have seen it done before. It's but in terms of
I've seen it done not as long and continuous as you've done it. Yours literally does not break.
I really stuck with it. Yeah,
you really committed to the bit.
I committed to the bit. Yeah.
And so again, looping back to the Radiohead thing we were talking about before, it's this very interesting experience to see, because you use actual photos from the show, you have text which tells you like upcoming dates and such, but then you also do these little scribbly drawings of, I presume, just bits and pieces that happened in the show.
Yeah. So the breakthrough for me was because if you go right back to the start, there's this phase that I call the wall of the asylum, where the background, the background is kind of white plaster, and the whole thing is kind of graffiti. And the reason for that is there were such limited resources that we'd built for the show. We'd done one photo shoot and we got like 4 photos out of it that we were like, these are kind of workable. That was very much like I'd just bought a digital camera and was like I just started doing the photos for it, so I wasn't getting a lot of juice for the squeeze, and and so then but I had to build content, and so it was all just kind of graffiti and kind of scribbles, and just kind of a stream of consciousness, kind of, hey, there's a show coming up, don't miss that show, whoa, you'll be but kind of done in a like kind of as I say, like kind of a lunatic scrawling on the wall of the asylum kind of thing, which hopefully was kind of compelling, but it was that basically came off the fact that there was I had no content.
Born out of necessity kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then the moment where it unlocked was me going, oh, I should recap moments from the show, because there's content there that is kind of really imaginative and amusing, that hopefully will kind of be weird or compelling if you weren't at the show. You'll just go, what is that? That's weird. Okay. But so much of what the show is about generating in-joke, and so I kind of hoped that there would be a follow-up to after the show where you go, oh, that moment, that I loved.
Yeah, totally.
That bit was great for me as well, and I really
What's quite cool about doing the whole scroll of the entire gallery is you actually really can see your photography skills get a lot better.
I know, right?
The first view looked good, but by the point you're up to now, you really have your own sort of visual language established, and it's almost like the first few are just good photography with consistent lighting, which, as someone who designs posters, like, it can be a nightmare when you're taking 6 different comedians' pics off their Facebook page.
Yeah.
But the ones from now are like night and day kind of difference. There's just something more. I don't know. You've established a style, and I can't exactly articulate it, but they all, especially like I think again, the ones on the snowy background definitely feel like they the most encapsulate the sort of perfect style photography. But the ones you've done with all the demigods, it still feels like they belong with the snowing ones. I'm rambling a bit there, but I think you know what I mean.
No, I do, and the other thing that I really wanted, that where kind of my skill has kind of caught up with my ambition, is that I wanted the show to look luxe. I wanted it to look luxe and kind of real kind of pro, kind of like, oh, this is going to be good, because look at this picture, and try not to get because there's not anything hugely comedic, right, about the image.
No, they're quite spooky.
Like it's a dead guy in the snow, but and so those kind of, I don't know, those kind of, I like the juxtaposition of that as well. Like, this is the image for a comedy show, like, because then it says that, like, I never try to hide what a thing is. Like, you know, it's very much like it's comedy, like, bam, there it is. It's in very big letters. But the image is kind of like, is it comedy, or is it go into, like, as you say, into the woods of the White Walkers?
I think that maybe helps build a little bit of sympathy for your characters, though, because a lot of them, the characters don't necessarily look like they're having a good time. The look on their faces is quite often of like concern or afraid or fear, and in a weird way I feel like that builds sympathy, because you kind of to me it feels like they're these human characters that have been thrust into this kind of hostile world, and they're just reacting to it, which, I mean, maybe that's how improv feels when you're doing it, because you're sort of you don't I've heard that the first step of an improv scene is establish the environment and kind of build from there. So in a way, you're kind of not sure where you are when you start out, and then it becomes clearer the longer the scene goes on.
Yeah, I certainly think we're trying to kind of capture the tempestuous kind of nature of those things, both in the show title and the thing. And I mean, so the other thing is that once we come up with that title, it became part of the actual performance itself. So one of the things that we really wanted to do was to eliminate the role of the MC from the show, right? An improvised show, particularly from the tradition that we all come from, is really driven by a host kind of who talks directly to the audience and is like, okay, well, the players just did this thing where they spoke with the next letter of the alphabet, and now they're all gonna, for the next scene, they're gonna stand on one foot, and every time someone says ham, they're gonna stand on the other foot or whatever. You know, someone who kind of comes and explains the rules and that sort of thing, and also goes, all right, we'll end that there, folks. That's the end of the scene. You know, and we're like, how do we get rid of that person?
I see.
And so we invented this thing, which is there's a big button on a plinth, and when you push the button, it triggers a lightning strike. So the lights go out and there's a flicker, 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 and there's an enormous sound effect of a lightning strike, and we use that to edit the end of the scene. So when a scene finishes, there's a lightning strike which turns the lights out, and then the lights come back up, and the next thing begins. We do the next thing without any...
Is that one of the performers that pushes the lightning button?
Yeah. So it can either be someone who's not in the scene, who's off stage, who just kind of reaches in and hits it, or it can be someone in the scene going, "I'm getting out of this," and pushing the button or whatever. And we knew that we wanted to invent that mechanic. We knew that we wanted a way to get rid of the MC, but it was actually the thematic nature of the title and the imagery that created the aesthetic of what that button was and what it would do and how it would function in the show.
It is endlessly fascinating talking about the way that the theme feeds back into the show and then the show feeds back into the theme, and I feel like we could talk about this for ages, but we are coming up on about 50 minutes now, so in the interest of keeping my Buzzsprout account manageable and the fees, which I do appreciate you recommending me to use. I definitely agree. And I should say, as of the time of this recording, I checked my rankings in the Apple podcast rankings, and for comedy interviews in New Zealand, I'm like number 55. So that speaks more to the fact that there's not a lot out there than
it's not hard to break the New Zealand charts, and it only takes like 2 or 3 ratings or reviews to kind of end up in the top 10, which pushes.
So listeners, please rate and review, because we are going straight to the moon with Ruddle Me This. But I appreciate your time, Dan. I could talk with you for hours about this sort of thing. Maybe we could do another episode if you feel like there's more ground to cover with Perfuct Storm. Maybe when you release your next shoot, you want to do another follow-up or something. Otherwise,
or I'll start a new project with a new kind of visual identity. I think that's something that I really learnt from Perfuct, was about a kind of thematically making a thing that, as you say, it kind of, even though it changes, it kind of exists in its own consistent world.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so at some point I'll do another one, and maybe we'll talk about that.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate that. Hope you have a great rest of the weekend. Hope the week goes well. Thank you so much for chatting to me.
Thanks, Taylor. Appreciate it. Awesome. Thank you.
Welcome back, Ruddle Maniacs. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Dan Bain. It was a lot of fun for me. I definitely enjoyed the portion of the podcast where we talked about Perfuct Storm more than the Radiohead stuff, but that was mainly because I don't really know about Radiohead, and I've known about Perfuct Storm for a long time, so these were a lot of questions I had been building up for a long time to ask Dan about. If you want to keep up with what Dan's up to, you can follow him on his many avenues of social media. All of the links are going to be in the show notes, and I'm just going to rattle through them right now. Linktree.com/IamDanBain, or you can check out any of his 3 Instagram accounts: Noosed Octopus, his main one, Stand Up in Hell, a kind of passion project of his, and Perfuct Show, to check out the Perfuct Storm feed that we talked about in the last sort of 10 minutes of that interview. Dan does 2 podcasts. He has Sleepy Time Mumbles, which you can find on buzzsprout.com, and X-Men the Animated Series Re-Examined with Javier Harquin from New Zealand living in the UK. Find Dan on Facebook at facebook.com/IamDanBain, and you can purchase his book, These Are Not the Rules of Improvisation, at the Ko-fi link in the show notes below. As for me, I've been Taylor Ruddle. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube as Taylor Ruddle Comedy. Super blessed to be able to get all of those sites with the same handle. Not on Twitter, even though I probably should be because I enjoy writing jokes. If you want to catch me live at a comedy show, come out to the Sprig and Fern in Maryvale, Christchurch on the last Thursday of the month from 7 o'clock for a show called Pizzas, Pints and Punchlines. It's $45 per person, which gets you a pizza, a pint, and entry to the stand-up comedy show. You can also join us once a month at Union Fair in Prebleton, which is usually the third Saturday of the month, and it is a similar dinner and a show. I think it's $55 for entry. You get dinner and dessert, and Tom, the owner and head chef, is a phenomenal chef that is worth every penny there. And the comedy show is pretty funny too. If either of those tickle you, go to facebook.com/CanDoComedy for more info and how to book your seats. Once again, I'd like to remind you to rate and review on Apple Podcasts if you'd like to help me out and get me as close to that. You know, I got to be realistic here. I don't know if I can dethrone Tom Sainsbury as the #1 comedy podcast on the New Zealand charts. That's a very important asterisk there, New Zealand charts. But you know what? I'd be happy with top 5. So if you like the podcast and you like me and you want to help me out, just give me a 5-star review. Tell me how much you enjoyed listening to the podcast. And let's get Ruddle Me This as close to #1 as we can. I'd be happy with number 3. I'd be happy with bronze. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. I hope you've had a good time, and I hope the rest of your week goes well. I've been Taylor Ruddle. We'll catch you next time.
One last thing before you go. On the 10th of May 2023, my first ever mini comedy special goes live on YouTube for free. We filmed it almost a year prior, and I'm so proud of the final result. The name of the special is Taylor Ruddle, All My COVID Jokes, and like I said, you can watch it for free on YouTube. If you search Taylor Ruddle Comedy into YouTube, you can find it, or you can just visit www.taylorruddle.com/spesh, that's SPESH, and you will be redirected to the YouTube video. I'm so happy with the final product, especially given that I only did the set, for the first time on the night, and I'd love for you to check it out, and let's see if we can get it to 500 views before the end of the year.